So you attended Harvard, earned 2 degrees, super lazy. So Harvard's home to many Jews, or at least traditionally has been.
A lot fewer
now.
today,
Yeah, which we'll speak about. My grandfather went to Harvard. A couple cousins went to Harvard.
Okay.
I've read that you said you never felt or saw any anti-Jewish anything when you were there. Were you aware of the sort of institutional past of being prejudiced towards Jews? Did you sense that at all?
You know, it's so interesting. I tell college students today, and this shocks them. I'm like, I could have walked through Harvard Yard, wrapped in an Israeli flag, yelling, "I am a Zionist and I love Israel." And I asked them, do you know what would have happened to me? And they're like, oh, what? I'm like, nothing.
Right.
Nothing. People would have just thought it was sort of weird, but it wouldn't have. I never once felt any anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism masquerading as anti-Zionism. I never felt that. And I was aware of the past. You know, the Ivy League has this kind of very ugly past with excluding Jews, but I felt none of that. And Harvard was, I think, 25% Jewish when I was there. I've never, not for 1 second in college or law school, did I feel any discomfort for being a Jew. And man, is it different today.
Boy. Harvard was objectively terrible last year. We know all that. And Jewish enrollment is now at a historic low.
Yep.
Are you still connected to the school at all? I mean, do you feel a sense of loss as an alum?
I do. I feel a real sense of frustration, of disdain. And I think there's something really off there. I'm beginning to worry that education has become more and more like indoctrination. You know, and just the lack of viewpoint diversity.
Yeah.
The fact that, you know, faculty have political stands and they're kind of seem to be just, you know, imposing them on students as opposed to, you know, I visited West Point. I spoke at West Point, and I was just blown away by the faculty there who said, we pride ourselves on the fact that none of our students knows our politics. And one of them said, if you argue X to me, I'm going to argue the opposite of X. If you argue the opposite of X, I'm going to argue X right back at you because I need to make you think. And I was like choking up when he was saying this, because after visiting so many college campuses where that value set is gone. And by the way, that's a Jewish value set. You know, this is our whole idea of argument for the sake of heaven. It's that you're hearing these opposing viewpoints. You're sharpening each other's minds by arguing. You are getting closer to something smart and truthful and wise. And I'm not sure that's happening anymore at Harvard, and that's sad.
You mentioned you went to West Point, and you spent a lot of time on college campuses in the last year. Was that something you sought out specifically to do?
Oh, it was funny. When I was starting to work on my second book, I wanted to get a better sense of what was happening on college campuses. So I reached out to Hillel, absolutely wonderful, and they said, "Look, we'll plan a little tour for you. You can kind of meet students, see what's going on, and that tour will start October 10th, 2023." We were planning this in August of 2023. Wow. So October 7th happens, and I'm texting with them. I'm like, do you still want me to come? Like, what should I do? And we decided the tour would go on. And so it wasn't a response to October 7th. It was really planned beforehand, but it became a response to October 7th. And it was, I came straight from like 1997 to 2023, and the shock that I felt. On so many, we're very distracted by these big encampments and protests, which are terrible, of course. But I am much more worried about the pervasive, systemic atmosphere on these campuses, like the air kids breathe.
Yeah.
In a lot of campuses, Israel is in the same moral bucket as the KKK and the Nazis, right? So if I said to you, Jonah, look, I'm a Nazi, sure, but I'm a liberal Nazi. That's insane, right? Or, I'm in the KKK, but I don't hate minorities. Like, that's monstrous. Like, come on, we're not going to have a conversation about that. And that's what I think a lot of students on campus hear when a Jewish student says, well, look, I'm a Zionist, I'm a liberal Zionist, I care about Palestinian rights. It's like Israel is now so evil, so untouchable that there's no point of contact you can have with it, just like there's no point of contact you can have with the KKK or Nazis. And once you're in that level of irrationality, there's no conversation to be had. So many Jewish students told me they tried to meet with their classmates who were harassing them and like have a conversation, and they would be told, no, that would be normalizing Zionists. I just thought like the extremity of this, and it's so confusing for these poor college kids because their anti-Semitism education has been Holocaust education.
Right.
So they get to campus, they're like, well, there are no Nazis here, but I feel really unsafe, and so I'm going to gaslight myself and say, well, maybe it's anti-Zionism, not anti-Semitism, and I have to walk them through like, okay, if a classmate of yours, I was like, can I walk through your campus with a T-shirt that says I love Israel? And they're like, oh God, no. I'm like, okay, what if a Black student came to you and said, my campus is great for Black students, but I can't wear my Black Lives Matter T-shirt, I'd get harassed. And the student's like, oh, that's racism, that's terrible. Great. gay student says, my campus, great for queer students, but if I wear my pride t-shirt, I will be harassed. Like, it's not great. That's homophobia.
Right.
So I was like, so how come if you wear your Israel t-shirt and you get harassed, you don't think that's anti-Semitism? And they're like, no, but the problem, it's not Jews, it's Israel. I'm like, okay, what if your Chinese American classmate wore a t-shirt that says, I love China? Even if your classmates knew what a terrible human rights violator China is, I'm guessing they would think, well, okay, I'm sure she doesn't love the Chinese government. She's probably just passionate about her heritage, or maybe she's studying Chinese history or language. I think your classmates would give her the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And that is not something that happens for Jewish students. And it's Dara Horn, who's one of my best friends and an amazing Jewish author. She talks about the difference between Purim anti-Semitism, which is like, you're a Jew, you're bad, I'm going to kill you. There is nothing you can do to be good. You can't convert, you're bad, I'm killing you. Whereas there's another kind of anti-Semitism, which is like, you're a Jew, you're bad, but there is something you can do to be okay. You can give up whatever it is that I, the majority, think is disgusting about Judaism. And so back in the day, if you were a Jew converted to Christianity, they wouldn't kill you for some time at least.
Yes, yeah.
For a while, maybe.
If you got lucky.
You could convert. And today I think I think about my parents' generation, the 50s, if you were a Jew and, just get rid of your last name, your nose,
right,
your Jewy gestures, right? Be less Jewy and then then you're safe. Today it's, get rid of your Zionism and then you're safe. And so you see these poor kids who are like, they're like, my rabbi growing up told me Israel was great. And then I got to campus and I learned they were genocidal, colonial Nazis. I saw the light. I had an epiphany. And then I took anti-Zionism and anti-colonialism into my heart and now I'm saved. And their classmates are like, now you're saved. You're a Jew who's seen the light. And it's like, guys, 2,000, like really, you can't come up with any new material? 2,000 years? Like, I feel like we deserve better. Like, it's just the same garbage about Jewish depravity, conspiracy, and power.
It works.
Same
If it ain't
garbage.
broke, don't fix it.
That's the thing. Once the neural groove is worn into the Western world psyche, it's like, it's a canyon, right? And it's not that hard to shove someone into a canyon.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like you had an impact while you were there, like on these kids? Do you feel like they took in what you were saying and were able to feel safer or at least more prepared?
I do. I mean, the Jewish students I met at these Hillels, they are extraordinary. Like they have been just told for so long, your feelings don't matter. Shut up with your Jewish privilege. You need to decenter your story. And so they've realized they can't just throw a tantrum and have everyone scamper around them and help them. They actually need to use their words. They need to marshal facts. They need to make arguments. So they have really learned to think, and when you have to decenter yourself all the time, you spend a lot of time listening to other people's stories. And so now they have a very deep sense of the diversity around them and they understand that. So I was very impressed by them. And I do think just to have someone tell them, this is anti-Semitism. It is not okay. Let me clearly articulate why this is so scary and upsetting for you. And just to really show compassion for them and just say, like, guys, this is not okay. I didn't go through this when I was in college. Like, I think that was helpful for some of them at least.
When did your tour conclude?
It's still going on.
Okay, so have you seen a change since you started?
I do think this year things are better.
Good.
I think a lot of
it seems that way from the outside. Even.
Yeah, I think a lot of campuses have started just shockingly enforcing their own rules,
right,
which they would enforce with regard to every other student group but Jews. So they started enforcing the rules. I mean, but I do think that pervasive atmosphere is still there. I think it's maybe a little less in your face, but it's better, but it's still absolutely awful.
Did you go to schools all over the country, all different kind of places, sizes, everything?
Everything. And people would say to me, well, the real problem is the elite schools. I'm like, nope, went to plenty of non-elite schools. Oh, the real problem is the small schools. Nope, went to plenty of, there's no pattern.
What kind of advice would you give to parents of high school kids now who are trying to decide where to go?
Yeah, you really have to know your kid. Like, I think there are some kids who actually, they do just fine. Mm-hmm. Even in the worst schools, they find the Hillel, they find their community, they're tough, they if anything, it's kind of almost I don't want to say good experience, but they really they mature and grow through it. Other kids are just not built that way, and you got to just know, like, okay, how's your kid built? And if you know this is really going to get to your kid, find a school where they're not, and find a school with a really good, vibrant Hillel, like a really good, vibrant Jewish community. I think that is a big difference. You're looking at two things: how anti-Semitic is the school, and how solid is the Jewish community.
Right.
And between those two things, you can figure out what to do.
Good advice.